In this little tutorial series, I'm going to hopefully show you how easy and cheap soldering electronics can be. I've broken this up into 5 videos, those being solders, flux, soldering irons, extra tools, and how to solder. I'll try my best to keep these videos short, to the point, and make it as clear as possible so anyone should be able to understand them. All of these videos are in the description of this video and also a playlist on my channel titled Soldering 101. The videos also have chapters and subtitles for those who want to use them. Before we get into this any further, a little bit of background on me and how I know what I know. I'm completely self-taught when it comes to soldering. I never went to school to learn, never had anyone teach me the right or wrong ways of doing things. I just blundered through until I found out what worked and what didn't. Because of that, some things I show probably aren't the correct way that you would be taught in a school or uni, but I've been doing it this way for 10 years now. It's worked well so far and I haven't blown too many things up or burnt myself too many times. Now, with all that out of the way, the reason for this series is simple. I use electronics in my videos and pretty much all of it will require some soldering, so why not make a Soldering 101 series, seeing I know what I'm doing. Kind of. It's also for people when they complain they don't know how to solder. I can point them to this and maybe they'll learn something. Believe it or not, soldering doesn't actually have that steep of a learning curve, especially when compared to designing circuits from scratch or reverse engineering. I'll be leaving those subjects to other YouTubers like BigClive.com, EEVblog, Electroboom, Mr. Carlson's Lab, SDG Electronics, and all the others. The rest of this video will be a general overview of soldering, the different fields soldering is used in, general words used, and enough information so you have a rough idea of what soldering actually is. Most of what's in the next section I'll be going over in depth in other videos, so if you don't want to listen to the rest of this video, then feel free to skip to one of the subsequent videos, which are again in the description and the Soldering 101 playlist. I've added the Wikipedia pages I'll be referencing loosely for this section of the video in the description, so if you don't want to listen to me drone on, feel free to have a read of it yourself. The first thing you need to know is this: soldering isn't just used in electronics, it's also used in plumbing, refrigeration, metalwork, jewelry making, and musical instrument construction. In each industry it refers to roughly the same act, which is using a heat source to heat up the components to be joined, and then melting in a low temperature alloy to join the components together. The low temperature alloy is called solder. I'll go into more detail about solder in another video. With soldering we use what's called a soldering iron. The most common soldering irons are electric ones with heating elements. They can either come with fixed wattage or variable to change the temperature as needed. The more power or wattage put into the heating element, the hotter it gets. You can also get butane gas irons, but for electronic work on PCBs, those aren't used all that much because it's much harder to regulate the heat and you have a much higher chance of damaging the components. I'll go into more detail about soldering irons in another video. As I said, there's other types of soldering, but for electronics they don't apply to us because of the temperature range. Electronic soldering is mostly done up to 450 degrees Celsius. Anything over 450 degrees Celsius is usually called silver soldering or hard soldering. This is most commonly used when you need to join semi-precious metals together such as gold, silver, brass and copper. Although for electronics, while we do solder to copper and gold, we aren't doing silver soldering because of the type of solder we use, which is normally tin lead or tin copper, but the copper content isn't high enough for us to need more than 450 degrees Celsius to solder correctly. The reason I bring silver soldering or hard soldering up at all is because some people get it confused with electronic soldering. They aren't the same thing. Brazing is another thing I've seen people sometimes confusing with both soldering, silver soldering or hard soldering. Brazing is done close to 1000 degrees Celsius and is used for joining metals and alloys as a lower temperature alternative to welding. One final thing for this video. With soldering we use different terminology like cold joint, tinning, wetting, whiskers and wicking. There are others, but these are the main ones. Learning them will help you understand what people are talking about when you watch videos or talk about soldering. Let's go through what these mean now. A cold joint is a solder joint that was either soldered at too low a temperature so the solder didn't completely melt and it created a weak bond, or the component was moved as the solder was cooling. Tinning is the process of adding solder to a component, wire or soldering iron tip in preparation for joining or protection. We tin wires and component legs to make them easier to join them, and we tin our soldering iron tips to prevent oxidization and corrosion. Wetting is where the solder in a liquid state flows freely and evenly over a surface. Bad wetting will cause balls or droplets of solder and not spread well. Whiskers are hair-like crystalline structures that grow from tin or zinc and can cause shorts. Wicking is capillary action that draws liquid up and away from the surface without the aid of anything like force or gravity. That's it for this video. In the next video we'll talk about solder.